Here's some strengths of what we've just seen. Let's discuss it as a tool, and the content is something I think that we can wrap our hearts and our minds around. When demonstrating this, I saw it the other day. In a live format, if you were talking to your group, you can have up to 100 people online watching this. And they register for this, and he has preloaded all of these texts. So when he wants them to come up, he has a short list that he sees, they simply come up. However, he could have pulled up a whiteboard, and he could have begun drawing on a whiteboard. That's another choice that he could have used. What if he had preloaded a video and video content? He could do the same thing with video. And then, as Tom pointed out, right under him, where we can see John speaking, there is room for active interaction with the speaker. If there's a moderator there off to the side, he can often take care of quick questions, but John would be seeing those questions roll by. He could choose to respond to them live at the same time. Now this is a pre-recorded module, but with what I just described, I think that you can see the strength and power of having a bunch of guys around. You're leading them during this time, and you're moving them through. Let me make a suggestion for a coaching module, and this is something that I'm working on. For those of you who are fans of Saddleback Church, you know about Ministry Toolbox. How many of you guys are subscribers to Ministry Toolbox? Okay, just about all of us. Make sure that you get subscribed to that, and you'll find that Rick comes out with a helpful 1 to 2 page article every week on one of the purposes, or peace, or preaching, or administration. He talks about all kinds of things. I've taken those over the years and I've put them into the 5 purposes. So I might have 100 articles on worship, 100 articles on ministry, or more. Now, when we are teaching through the material, let's say we're talking about the purposes. I'll choose 4 articles that Rick has written on what does it mean to be a purpose-driven church? What are the purposes? And in the 4 weeks, we have the live training, and in the 4 weeks that the pastor is working, he would receive on Monday, let's say for example, an article. And the article does not introduce anything new. It simply reinforces in a fresh way what he learned in the session. Hey, read this on Monday, we'll discuss it on Friday. On Friday, the phone call comes. We pull up that article, and there's a brief teaching, and then we just open it up for Q&A. And we're going back and forth. What problems are you facing? And it can be discussion on any question. Final 10 minutes, you review where they're at with their homework, pray for them, and then you're offline. That would be a 60-minute call for coaching. That's just one example. But this particular tool called Adobe Connect is a really powerful tool for doing that. Let me stop there for a second. Any additional questions that I may or may not be able to answer? I'm sure I can with Tom's help. Clayton?
So if you can have a max of 100 people that are on here, with that scale, how are you collecting the trackable data that you would need as a coach?
Yes. The trackable data will come from a different source. It won't come from this teaching tool. But for a guy to be online with you, you're going to know his name and his church name and his contact. That's probably all that you will have on this coaching call. However, what's being designed is a dashboard where each time we get together on a monthly basis, you update what we're going to select as primary data points. Attendance, baptisms, small group participation, members in ministry, this kinds of things, and we're going to watch those numbers go up and down. It will be a different tool than this. Okay? Another? Yes, brother?
Dave, what do you think you give up by using Adobe Connect?
Well, I haven't looked at it in terms of what we give up. You know, there's nothing like face-to-face, and there's nothing like very customizable and very, very personal. And that's extremely true. What I've been focusing on is what do we gain? We gain the ability to be at home and reach anywhere that we need to in the world. If I'm willing to get up in someone else's time zone, I do get that face-to-face. I gain that. I also gain, with this tool, I gain not just a talking head, like maybe a Skype call, but I do get materials and all these kinds of things that can actually be emailed. I also gain with this, each session can be recorded. So even though it's live for us, and I'm not recommending 100 guys, I'm saying maybe there's 15, 16 guys online. Those 15 and 16 with their questions, just like your input today, if that were recorded, future guys could not only have their own discussion, but they could say, hey, I wonder what that other group had to say. So the ability to record it and loop it so that it's available at any time, it's just got some tremendous pluses with it. And I think that the downsides are really the customization, the personalization, the relational face-to-face nature of it. And those are things that you can predict, but there's a lot of pluses with this.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time on Adobe Connect and WebEx and other similar technologies.
Mm-hmm.
I would just always recommend it remaining solidly supplemental to the overall goal. That since we're in the people business, right? That the personal touch is a huge piece.
Yeah.
The other part is it's easy, very easy to multitask when you are on the other end of the presentation.
Yeah.
You can have 5 browser windows open, including email, other things. So it's I agree, there's power, and if you think about just the airfare savings, if you're going further than just down the street, there's a huge upside to the tool. The only reason I ask about what you're giving up is if you keep that, like you're doing, if you're cognizant of what you're giving up in this technology, then you can add it in other ways.
Yeah.
You can structure around to build the face-to-face, relational building, sort of emotive piece of being right next to your brother, right? You can also build in, as you were talking about the interaction, the bidirectional communication in this has to happen frequently, or you have multitasking.
Yep, and I really appreciate those. Those are great comments. One thing that I have not evidently made clear enough, that this is indeed a supplemental tool. This is a coaching tool. Let me describe it this way. Let me talk through it. It's March 1st, and we get together and we have a 5 to 6 hour face-to-face coaching time. We're talking, we're interacting, it's all real life people. That's a training session. That's March 1st. March 8th, you get this phone call. March 15th, you get a supplementary phone call. March 22nd, March 29th. And all these are designed to do is to reinforce and help to push and guide what you have learned on March 1st. What happens on April 1st? Hey, it's April Fool's Day. Okay, but April 2nd. What happens on April 2nd? You have another training session. You're back again face to face. So this is the link that keeps our hearts together. It is not meant to replace the face-to-face. It's meant to enhance. I might have miscommunicated.
I don't think so. I'm just telling you the logical next step is it's everything. And the reason I say that is because in our in the rest of the non-church world, that's what happened to sales.
There you
That's
go.
why a lot of folks said, throw away the WebEx, you're not allowed to use that anymore, get back on the plane and go see the customer. Because we found, even outside the church, that a lot of engagement is relational, body language, which is still visible in the video screen, but you're missing out on a lot of that, and sort of my body language feedback. So absolutely agree with you, fantastic supplemental technology. I'm just saying guard against the next step, which is, why don't we just use it for everything?
Okay. You know what? That is heard and recorded and heartfelt. Very good, thank you. Kelly Brothers.
Is there the capability for you to see the other people?
I do not believe that that is possible.
Okay. Is it possible for them to call in and actually ask a question and to dialogue?
I do not believe that that is possible.
It's all web driven.
Yeah, it's all web driven.
Because I've done a coaching thing with it where you could actually call in and they can take questions and you can hear the questions.
That was askkelly.com, wasn't it?
No.
Go to meeting.
Go to meeting.
All about Dave.
You can do it, just not with this spot.
Yeah, okay.
Set up a separate bridge.
Good questions though.
Go to meetings.
Okay, but I think that that's a no and a no.
Okay.
Okay?
So you can use GoToMeeting, which gives you that capacity to have, everybody sees everybody on the screen.
Yeah.
But it's obviously for smaller groups.
Yeah.
And you still have the capacity to put up media and all the rest of that stuff. But then everybody's got a face-to-face.
Yeah, GoToWebinar is the 100.
Okay, well, noted and recorded. Thank you.
How much does this cost?
It costs the host, which would be us, for up to the contributors, people who can contribute. I think you can have 4, and it's about $500 a year. But users, it's free. So the host, we would take the hit.
So you guys are going to administer this, so it's like put it in the URL, the meeting URL comes from you?
Yes.
Yeah, not always URL, but with that comes any associated documentation that would go with that would be sent ahead of time.
So who's on video? I'm confused. The coach isn't on video, then the video is sent from PD Central. Correct? Or am I confused?
It's web-based, so it's a URL.
Huh?
Yeah, you're saying, and he's asking this question, Tom. If Paul has a coaching group of 6 guys in Albuquerque, and he's coaching them remotely, he would be the guy on the screen, correct? Yeah.
And paying,
And you would be coaching your team.
Then I would be the one who's paying the host fee,
yes.
not
Right.
PD.
Correct.
Okay, so then that answer that PD's covering that cost is inaccurate for coaches.
Yeah, I was being self-centered and thinking of myself.
Yeah, okay, cool, thanks.
The cost is, I think it's like, what, 104 a month?
40,
92 a month, depends on what you're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah,
yeah,
depends on what you're doing.
right.
Russ,
So we run a coaching network out of our church. It's led and hosted by our senior pastor, Tommy. He's got a cohort of usually between 10 and 15 guys per semester, a couple of semesters per year. And I think one of the questions that we really have to think critically about is this concept of coach versus shepherd. Because Tommy can have 15 guys on a call and for a 1-hour time block, and they can have great conversation, but then the text messages start coming. And then the Facebook Messenger messages start coming. And then the emails start coming. And as a pastor, his inclination is to shepherd those dudes. And maybe there's even some sort of inherent promise that he'll be there for them if things go terribly wrong. But I think we need to manage the scope of the engagement so that we don't have people going off mission and forgetting about their primary role as a pastor to shepherd these other people.
very good. Okay, that's recorded, that is noted, that's a great one.
Yeah, Dave. Yeah,
Yes, Jim?
Yeah, that was a dilemma I found myself in. We grew so many churches in India and Cambodia and around the world. I couldn't be both a pastor of a local congregation and coach all these other pastors. I had to make a decision because you can't shrink wrap coaching. It doesn't crisis and doesn't work on a schedule, and stuff hits the fan all the time, all over the world, 24/7. And so I'm very concerned about this portion of the teaching because I run a coaching network and I raise up coaches internationally, and this would not work.
Okay.
It's too complex, it's too burdensome, the requirements are too demanding, and it's unsustainable. I've tried to implement it 3 or 4 times internationally, and this is just way more than they could pack in their backpack. And you got to realize that the other thing is we're trying to reach unreached people groups, and many of those are in impoverished countries, and these guys are fighting for personal survival. I mean, My pastors are fighting to get bread in their mouth. And then we're going to ask them to take on this level of responsibility. I just had to way back down my expectations. And then also in my congregations, they're 40, 50, 60% illiterate. So these guys are, you know, they're trying to bridge the gap between a highly technical world and an illiterate congregation. They're trying to bridge the gap between linear thinking and circular thinking. I mean, this is, I just have to really understand what it means to be their servant and coach them based on the reality of their life. And I feel like this is a great guideline, this is a great thought, but it's overwhelming. That's all.
Okay, that's heard, it's recorded, and that's deep in our heart. So we're with you on that. We're gonna find those answers though.
Great.
Okay, man, that did not fall on deaf ears. I just want you to hear that. Thank you. Thank you for the passion. Chad, I'm gonna let you go right after Brother Walter.
Well, I guess that was a question I have, kind of with all of this, is I'm a little confused about who is the target for this. Even as I've heard some comments, are we creating a purpose-driven coaching network that's going to deal with the revitalization of PD in the States? With this, I think the idea of 8 regional conferences and that kind of, am I going to be coaching guys down the street or in Albuquerque or across here? That's one whole thing. But then we're also now looking at global coaching and the idea of taking this cross-culturally into, I mean, that's a whole different kind of target. And
yes.
so I guess I'm hearing a lot of things, and I'm excited about all of them. But
yeah.
Why am I here?
There was a book written about that. It's called The Purpose-Driven Life, and I got a copy for you after this meeting.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we have to, not only domestically, but when we get overseas, multiplying that coaching network and using in-country people to coach. I mean, obviously, this can't all go back to a domestic coach here in the U.S. because just like Kim said, they'd be overwhelmed. The gentleman over here said, you know, the emails start to come, the texts start to come, and there's that expectation that they're going to want to answer those. And so, span of, you know, scope. You know, how many people could you possibly coach? That's one thing. But we want those coaches to be in country. One of the things we started to test in Mexico was to have local coaches right there. That we raise up out of those ranks of people that are going through the process to raise them up as coaches, so that that's where the answers come from, and in a much smaller span of care.
Yeah, that's a good, clear answer for now, and I think it'll become even more clear and focused. But as these questions are raised up, they're being recorded, and we're going to work for those answers. And you guys are a part of that solution, just as you demonstrated today.
I trust you, Dave.
Okay. Man, I tell you, you do not have the gift of discernment, but other things are working for you.
Dave, that was noted and appreciated.
Yeah, thank you. Wait, it's like this.
I want to add just a little addendum. So what we're doing right now, we're sort of beta testing this in our coaching network. We're going to do a Central Florida regional cohort where there's FaceTime and on-site presence. They can come to our church. We can walk them through the kids' wing and say, this is what we do to create the environment. Because our theory is that there's going to be actually a higher value to having face-to-face regional model than we've got people in the Bronx and Denver and LA, and they can sort of grasp the macro concepts, but it's different than actually being on site and touching the sanctuary and seeing and catching some vision for what could you do contextually in your own city. So that's all I'll say about that.
Okay.
Duly noted. Recorded.
Thank you. See, I don't even have to say it anymore. Brother.
What is PDC going to do? Is this relationship between the coach and PDC? And basically what I'm hearing, coaches are putting out a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort. And besides the material, how else are you going to be supporting the coaches with gas mileage, Adobe Connect, printing out paper? What's PD part of the bargain? Because I read this, that these coaches will do this at their own expense. Means you want a small thing getting bigger and bigger. How is PD going to help the coach? If the coaching just goes networking is huge. How does PD help facilitate that?
Yeah, I wish we had that practical answer for you right now, but we don't, because it hasn't been tested that way yet. But I'll tell you what I know about our pastor, about our church. When a problem needs to be solved, we get down to it. So all I can say is, we don't have the answer to that yet, but it will come and it will be a satisfying answer. That's right. I'm just saying. I'll tell you something. I have great confidence in this team, and especially David Sean, because he's got his credit card out right now.
Let me answer a question, and because it's real simple. PD's going to do what it can do, and you got to do what you got to do.
Well, I understand that, but
That's
what's that relationship going to look like?
yeah. Well, that part we don't know. This is the beginning, right? I mean, we had 20 years of PD history behind us, and now we're at this point, right? We're at this point, and to make it sustainable, scalable, right, and repeatable, we've got to do things differently. Every one of you here are part of a denomination that is declining. Not the people in the denomination, the infrastructure of the denomination. Whether you're talking AG, whether you're talking SBC, whether you're talking, UMC, whatever it is, the infrastructure that we paid into is not serving the churches the way that it was intended, right? And so now leaders, capable leaders, every one of you in here is looking at going, I can do a whole lot more with $1 that somebody gives me than $1 that I give away. Right? And it's not to be disrespectful or anything. We're gonna invest. We just had the largest offering that we have ever done in the history of Saddleback Church. One of the biggest buckets was this effort right here. It was one of 5 buckets. Right? We were going to start 10 new campuses. We were going to start 10 new local peace centers. We're going to build a leadership development building. We're going to invest in the next level or the next generation of church management software, and we're going to invest in our efforts in PD Global. Those are the five areas, right? And so we know that at the heart, as Dave would say, the heart of our pastor is we're going to pay for and we will fund or we will support what nobody else wants to. But then we've got to develop a system that says whatever money you put in is because you want to and you're seeing the direct results of it. So I don't know what that looks like. I don't know where the line is drawn. But I know a lot of the infrastructure stuff we will support, we will invest in. But when you've got guys that you want to coach, we would hope to say that your church, your mission says, we're gonna invest in these pastors. We are. That's us. That's us. If there's an infrastructure backbone that we've got to invest in, we are already taking the steps. We brought a guy onto our staff, and we're already in the process of raising an additional $25 million, right, to support an infrastructure, to build an infrastructure that we think is needed for some of this, because we believe in it that much. Where it comes to, are we going to pay for? Are we going to pay for the reproduction costs of the resources of the guys that you're coaching? Nope, we're not. We're going to give you access to them because we believe in you. Are we going to invest in the translation of materials? Absolutely, because that's the heart of our pastor, and we already know we're putting resources into that. I know there's some of you guys here that you've already invested money from your church into translating resources, and you know what? I get choked up and I get goosebumps when I think about what you have done to take the message that far. I can't tell you. I can't tell you. It's fascinating to me to know that you're here because Rick Warren shared a paradigm out of Scripture that you guys have bought into, and you've seen it not only change you personally as a leader, but you've seen it change hundreds of lives, if not thousands of lives, in your churches. The step that we're talking about is that missional step of all of us raising our vision to say, what can God do through our local churches? Whether it's pastors around the globe or it's pastors right next to us, what can my church do to take that on?
Yeah.
We're not asking anybody else to do that. So does that make sense?
Yeah.
I hope that was a very respectful answer.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
No.
I mean, when Promise Keepers was big,
Yeah.
they had guys on the staff on the ground doing it.
Yeah.
When they went to free,
Yeah.
and with the volunteers,
Yeah.
well, we still have the Promise Keepers.
And you saw it
There's
now. You
there's
saw
some-
the whole thing collapsed.
Well, because there's going to be something that got to be in the system to help out. I'm not saying everybody want to invest in. I'm investing guys, we're investing guys now.
Yes.
But there's got to be something in the system to realize if we don't put a value to the relationship,
Yeah.
it's going to wing up because life's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like the pastor said, life happens to us. So that
Absolutely.
happens, we're going to decide whether what's important in our life
Yeah.
parameters.
Absolutely, and I realize that when we look at it, if we give you the resources and you say, hey, in order to make this sustainable for us at our church, we have to charge this amount, great, charge it. And you keep the money. I don't want a cent. I don't want a Saddleback does not want any money at all. What we want to do is just continue to lead the banner and wave and beat the drum on something that we know has changed our church, changed the lives in our church, and is changing other churches. And so that's where we're at. So when we look at what happened with Promise Keepers, you know what? They bypassed the church entirely. I'm sorry, they could have raised up guys in churches to do that, and they didn't. And we're still here, and we're still moving forward. And Promise Keepers is gone. And so just staying within the scalable, sustainable system of the local church is what we're trying to do. And I know that Mike will share a little bit more about that even later tonight as we talk peace and international stuff and everything else. So yes, Kurt.
I just want to say thank you. I think you guys have provided so much already. I think Amy's question is legitimate. I think we pastors, and I'm just going to speaking a little bit to myself as well as you guys, we tend to think real big, and we get overwhelmed. I appreciate what the brother's doing in India and Thailand. I'm thinking about 3 guys that I can spend the best time in, and maybe one of those will do it with 3 or 4 others. And that for me is reproducible. So.
Yeah, that's great. Jason.
And being a church planner, I understand that often when you're trying to do something new, and I mean, several here have been church planners, and you don't always have the answers, and you're working your way through it.
Yeah.
But I also think that when we talk about motivation, I'm motivated. I mean, I have questions like everyone else, but I think it's extremely inspiring that we can go to a place and talk with other pastors, and we're not. Honestly, sometimes pastors can be competitive or insecure.
Sure.
And I think there's something that's powerful when we come together and go, how can we help each other? Because we're part of something bigger than just where we're at. We're part of God, expanding God's kingdom. And to me, that's extremely powerful. And so, yes, there's questions, but I'm excited. I would like to be a part of trying to find answers. But so thank you for bringing us.
Hey, you bet. Yeah, let's go Tom first.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize too that this is just another tool, and that, let's face it, we have to remain relevant. You know, to reach people, we have to remain relevant, and that's part of it. I am certain that the Apostle Paul would have loved to have the opportunity to get his message out like this. And so we have to just wrap our arms around, well, as best we can, how can we reach people? And whatever tool we can do to utilize to do that is we need to embrace. It doesn't mean that it's a fit for all, but I'm excited about the fact that we have opportunities like this to reach people. When I can't get to a place, it's nice to know that I can still get a message there, whatever that message may be. in place of that. And then I'll get there. But there's going to be times where we can't get somewhere. And it's wonderful to know that you can still touch someone in a way, however small that might be. You know the people who you're in I know people I'm in a relationship with. They will embrace the fact that there's still opportunity for them to learn. And I like the idea. I don't think it's a perfect, but I think it's another way of communicating.
Yeah, and it also, right now, it fits the strategy that and I don't know if it got said, but our strategy is we're trying to go into the urban areas where the pastors are around the world, right? Where there's concentration of people and pastors, and then equip them to take it out to the rural pastors because they know the language, they know the culture, and those things. This is not going to make it to the rural path, right? But based on what Hunter said, it is the value of the relationships. It's got to be sustainable and scalable, and to what Clayton was saying, it's got to be doable. It's got to fit into the lives of pastors, right? Because let's just face it, some of you don't have the staff that Saddleback does, but eventually you'll get there, But I'm just saying, we've brought people on to do some of this stuff. A lot of this stuff you're doing it out of who you are and who God made you to be, right? And so it's got to be doable, because if you guys look at this and you go, that is not doable, then it's broken. It's broken from the start, right? Because I know that we can do it because we're hired to do it. We were brought on. We were put together as a team to do it. We could spend all day coaching guys all day long. But that's not our target. Our target is you guys. And if this isn't doable, then we have to take another run at it. Right? That's the heart of it. That's really the emphasis that we're getting behind. So I can tell you, it has been like one of the most painful experiences for me to sit over there and hear what you guys have said. Because we've invested so much in it. It's one of those, it's like somebody pointing out how ugly your baby is. I mean, it's really, I didn't think, I thought it was going to pretty cool, and then I'm sitting there going, oh, wow, and I got to feel the weight of it. But at the same point in time, you guys wouldn't be candid with us if you didn't appreciate it and you didn't love us.
Absolutely.
And so I'm thrilled with that part more than anything else. I know there's a few other questions. Yeah, Travis.
If I could just say, and obviously, David, we've had hours and hours of conversations about this, but I know not everybody knows me, and I pastor a church in Scottsdale, Impact Church. I guess I look at this entirely different from it's always that where I come from perspective. I'm 39, and I've pastored the church for 5 years, and my church is basically my age, give or take, right? I mean, there's a few older, a few younger. The predominant target age of my church is me. It's young families, parents with kids that have preteens, teens, lots of kids. There is no stigma, there is no flaw, there is no preconceived idea of anything about the two words purpose-driven. And if you go up to my church and ask them, they don't even know what you're talking about. Okay? Our church has grown from 200 people to 2,000 people in about 4.5 years, and we've water baptized 800 of those. They don't know what you're talking about, okay? Which has been great because they trust me as their pastor, so they trust what I trust. So we are a purpose-driven church. I mean, I don't hide it, but I say it. I don't, every Sunday I'm not like, hey, don't forget, we're a purpose-driven church. It's not like I'm doing that, but I use the terminology, I've explained the terminology, I've preached the purposes of the church. I use the baseball diamond. I use the 5 concentric circles. I mean, you guys, it's like to a T. I gotta tell you, I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona, one of the entrepreneurial capitals of the nation, with doctors and CEOs, and I'm just saying, I can't find anything that doesn't work so far for me. I know it's a different perspective. I don't have a lot of church people swapping from other churches, but my people dig it, man. They love the model. They love the strategy of going from this spot to this spot, whether that be from a bachelor's degree to a master's to a PhD. They like that. Forward progress. What's next? They like that. The movement, the motion, the growth, even if it's one step at a time. And so, you know, I just want to end with this. Because of, let's face it, pastors like numerical growth. They do, man. And we all should, because, you know, if there's one that doesn't know Christ, we should be getting after him, right? I mean, we should. But when a church is growing, other church pastors go, excuse me, what are you doing? Okay, nobody cared about impact. I'm just telling you, I didn't have many friends until our church hit the top 100 fastest growing church magazine. You know how many friends I have now? I have so many friends, and like they want to know, well, what are you doing? What, you know, how, and all of a sudden, when you have a church that's growing, it just gives you the voice to say what's worked. And that's all that Saddleback has done, is they've said, this worked for us. Want it? You've heard it through all the conferences. If my bullet fits your gun, shoot it. Right? So for me, I mean, the bullet works over and over and over and over and over and over. And so I say that to say this, going back to the kind of the financial part of it. You know, I serve as the team pastor for the Phoenix Suns. I have been since 2002. Okay? Still do. So that's 13 years. You know how much I've gotten paid for that? I haven't gotten paid for that. You know how much gas I spend going to the arena? You know how many times I've been in these guys' house? You know how many times I've put my own wife and kids aside to go counsel with players and athletes and people's lives? It's just a part of, I wouldn't trade it for the world, right? Well, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Why? Because it's athletes, it's pro athletes? Well, because it's what God called me to. It's what God called me to. And so it doesn't matter if it's pro athletes, kids, teenagers, you know, this concept of purpose-driven. Dude, if God's calling you to it, and it's just my opinion, I don't mind pumping whatever resources we can, because all it's doing is pushing the gospel forward. And so, you know, I've talked to David at length about stuff like this, but, you know, for me, for being a young guy, I also say this, I mean, there's not a lot of guys younger than me that are in ministry now that are pastors that even know what purpose-driven is. You say the word purpose-driven and they go, oh yeah, I've read the book, Purpose-Driven Life. No, not that, Purpose-Driven Church. Oh yeah, I don't know what that is. What is that? I mean, people don't even know. So, you know, I second what you guys are saying, just a huge thanks, because I don't know how I would be able to do, or how I could do what I do without having a model.
Amen.
And even though Saddleback's 900,000 people every weekend, you know, it's still a model for me. And it's a huge model, but it's still a model. And I'm like, okay, that works for them, that can work for us too. And it does. And there's not a lot of conferences I've been into. When I was going to Purpose-Driven Church conference early on, I would walk out with bags of just usable resources. You know, most conferences are you get inspired for a day or two, but you can't really use a lot of it. You know, so it's been highly effective for us.
Awesome.
Wonderful. Thanks. And Glenn?
I just wanted to say too, David, your baby's not ugly.